Hello, with me is James Wayman, who gave an interesting keynote on biometrics, privacy, and things like that. So I think this is a question that touches every one of us and makes us feel a little bit anxious about what we like to be, what we want to have private for ourselves and what not. So what makes us anxious? What is it? Can you help us in this?
Sure. Let me first define biometrics, because I think the problem that you point to is in the definition itself, and that is automated recognition of individuals based on biological and behavioral characteristics. What that means is I have to observe your biology and your behavior to recognize you, and observing your biology means I need to look carefully at your finger, or I need to look carefully at your eye, or I need to measure your hand, or I need to take a good quality photo of your face. I need to do something very close to your body, and that makes people feel uneasy. Oh, they're looking at my body. And I understand that. People are uneasy about having computers make detailed measurements about their bodies. That makes sense to me.
As you said in your keynote, the body is just one part of us. There is other things which people may call soul, spirit, or whatever. So, which means when looking at some body data, that's not everything of us that will be unveiled. So we will be able to keep something for our own still, but it may also tell a lot about ourselves as well. Is that what people fear in this case?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In modern philosophy, there's a debate between whether human identity is incorporated just in the animal body or whether it's something that transcends the body. American philosopher Eric Olson has argued that an individual is simply the body, that an individual is an animal. And a woman named Lynn Rudder Baker from the University of Massachusetts Amherst has argued the opposite very convincingly in a book called I think Human Identity, a Constitution View, that the body is only one part of what a human is, and maybe even not the most important part, that a human is something that transcends quite a bit the body. This argument goes all the way back to Greek times and was very, very influential in the first couple of centuries in Christian thought. This is an argument that's not going to go away. In biometrics, we don't worry about the argument. We simply say we are deciding that you are your body, and if we want to recognize you, we'll recognize you on the basis of the body. We don't want to hear any more philosophical arguments about this. Of course, that's a truncated way to approach life, but that's what biometrics says, is we will recognize you by recognizing your body, and we will look very closely at it to do so.
Yeah. Of course, you need a definition in order to proceed. The long-term aspect of this is, I think, when our life ends, this record will be sort of reset. So this ends the story anyway. Is that something that helps people, or is that...
I don't know. Some people are worried that biometric measures, for instance, their fingerprints, can outlive their personalities. Let me explain what I mean by that. I mentioned in my talk that perhaps I did some things in college that I don't want to be discussed today, that maybe I'm not the same person that I was in college. I hope I'm not. I hope I've grown. I hope I'm I don't tell the same jokes, hopefully, for instance. But my fingerprints haven't changed. My fingerprints are the very same fingerprints as that other fellow that used my name 45 years ago. So the question is, I've changed quite a bit. Maybe my fingerprints haven't. And maybe my right to be forgotten can be impeded by my fingerprints. And maybe people can use those fingerprints to dredge up stories of me and some jokes I told 45 years ago that I would prefer not to have remembered. You know, there are some things that I would like to have forgotten that maybe would be impeded by fingerprints.
And also personality changes a little bit over time, so I think it's quite obvious that people should be aware of, well, okay, you get the information about myself, which is 40 years old, but it's not the same person. So you need to take that into account, and maybe this makes me feel a bit more confident about these things. But apart from all this, these difficult aspects, I guess there's something that really supports us, that can help us, so there are some benefits. Maybe you can emphasize this too a little bit.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So governments are faced with huge problems, particularly liberal governments, like the ones we all live in, for instance, that have social service benefits, that have retirement benefits, that have to keep records on individuals and cannot confound those records. My name is James Wayman, as you pointed out, but there are many people named James Wayman. This is a very common name. So the government has the problem of determining which James Wayman I am, and also of making sure that the records don't become confounded. That is, that the money I pay into retirement programs doesn't go into someone else's account, or his money doesn't come into my account, and then when I show up and it's time to retire, I get the money only that is in the account applying to this particular James Wayman. For that reason, government's under a lot of pressure to go to biometric identification, because of all the James Waymans in the world, and there are very many of them, I'm the only one with these fingerprints, for instance, or the only one with these irises, for instance. And so there's pressure on the governments to use biometrics, and governments will use biometrics. We use them all the time in the United States. I live in the state of California. To get a driver's license, you must supply a right thumbprint, just exactly for this reason.
Well, for us as consumer electronics people, do you have something, some advice for us what we should look into in future, or what we should not look into?
So there are a number of recommendations made in a report by the U.S. National Academies of Science called Who Goes There? Authentication Through the Lens of Privacy. I wrote a paper in 2009 for the IEEE Security and Privacy magazine that gives some guidelines for the use of biometrics. In short, remote biometrics is probably a bad idea, particularly if you're asked to do that by a commercial company. I would not want a commercial company to have my biometrics. I try to minimize the number of groups that have my biometric measures. The US government certainly has my biometric measures. The British government has my biometric measures. I was asked for biometric measures recently when crossing into Japan. Those are conditions of border crossing. I'm happy to do that as a condition of border crossing. I don't want to give biometric measures to Google or to Amazon. I don't feel that's necessary. I feel if they need to identify me, I can do that by giving them a credit card number. So I would encourage people to use biometrics for government applications because they're required, and to minimize the use of biometrics outside of that.
So also the responsible use and application of all this is an issue.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, James. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and enjoy the rest of the conference and the dinner tonight. Thank you very much again.
Good. Thank you.